Welcome, welcome. Thanks for joining me, Craig.
Most welcome, Mel. Most welcome. Beautiful, beautiful to be here. Beautiful to be everywhere.
Isn't it? I love your energy, which is exactly why I've invited you to come in and share a little on your story because I love seeing how you show up in our community. And I especially loved something that made me think of you straight away was when you shared on a community call something along the lines of like, if you want to be doing jelly wrestling and getting paid to do so. But you were talking about like all the beautiful spiritual kind of things. And I'm like, oh, I didn't expect you to say that. And it just cracked me up. And I'm like, I have to get Craig on.
Yeah. It's funny, isn't it? Like because we're in the freedom business. We're in the business of freedom, and yet a lot of people aren't actually free yet. And the point is that regardless of how much money you do or don't have, if you're not free up here, and if you're not free here, and if you're not soul connected, then are you actually really free? And
Mm.
that's the point, right? So I like to drop little things like that. Another one is like to be skinny dipping at a waterfall covered in chocolate mud cake. Well, why not? And it happens every time in that when I suggest these things, even though they might feel nonsensical or silly, you did it just then. It brings a smile to the face, right? It brings the body knows. And how does the body know? Well, our emotions tell us and our physical feelings tell us. And if our face lights up with a smile, then we know, oh, hello, we've hit something. Like there's a resonance there. And yet often we don't use those as measures of what we should do. The mind gets involved. And it's not even the free mind, it's the programmed mind. Dr. Bruce Lipton talks about how if we use the word think, I think, I think, I think, then what we're actually doing is we're actually referring to our own brain as a limited database information storing device.
Mm.
And the only answer we can actually receive is from what's already stored there. And so instead, if we were to use phrases like, I wonder, it's one of my big ones. I wonder. I wonder, I'm sorry, I've just got a mozzie bite on my foot.
Yeah. The Mozzies are wild here too. But I love that. As soon as you say I wonder, it's like, oh,
It's
oh.
it opens, I wonder. And that upward look, I wonder. I wonder. I use it with clients all the time. I use it with kids when I'm in school. Like, oh, sir, should I do this? Oh, I wonder. I'm not saying yes or no. I'm just, oh, I wonder. And then, half the time I know, more than half the time. It's often, here's another fascinating one you might love, is that whenever we're asking ourselves a question, we actually already know the answer. We're just asking the question for confirmation. It's
Absolutely.
the knowing that literally forms the question in the first place. Should I do this thing? The only thing that's going to stop you is all the stuff inside you that doesn't feel worthy of it or aligned with it. Ooh, should you? I don't know. Do you get to? Are you allowed to?
Are you willing to?
Yes. You're going to make time to? Are you important enough to prioritize it? Does it really matter to you? Or is all the other stuff that you've been practicing for decades more important, even if it's a load of shit?
Especially.
Exactly. Right? And how often do we actually prioritize all these things that we actually don't even want?
Mm. Yeah, I feel you. I feel you. I feel like we could probably chat for hours on all these.
Lifetimes,
Yeah.
lifetimes.
Yeah.
Ready, set, go.
Yeah, I love how you chat. I'm like, oh my God, yes. So, but what I really want to do is just share a little piece of your story, and like where you were, where before you found our beautiful Freedom Era community. And how did you find what we have?
Yeah, and it's fascinating, right? In that when people tell their stories, you can tell how practiced it is in the telling of it, how expressive they are. And I find it fascinating, that when people often drop into their story, when they become emotive, when they become expressive, you know, oh, this is a really strongly held belief. And yet at the same time, see, I also believe that I'm a creator. I'm creating as I go. And so if I actually pull my old story forward, then my old story becomes my future too. And so it's interesting, you can do things like, well, my old story up till now was, it sends a signal to the brain. Just remember that this is the past and I'm creating my future. So the past version, thank you, mind, for remembering this is the past. The past version of me, and I say this sort of flippantly because it is what it is, but you know, middle class white boy, uh, safe, relatively stable upbringing, um, and along with that came all of these things. You know, I wanted to be an artist. I trained in art school in Sydney, going from Port Macquarie down to art school in Sydney, and you know, going everywhere with the old street directory. For those people that might be that old, they remember them. Before there was, you know, phones to tell you turn right in 50 meters. You know, we had to look up. I just carried one in my backpack all the time. So going to art college and jumping on and off trains and buses and walking around everywhere. And there was a freedom in that. But at the same time, it was still just being an just being an artist. It's in the language, yeah.
Yeah.
Just just an artist. And so, you know, I eventually became I met a beautiful woman that we eventually married and had 3 kids. And at the same time, then I wanted to provide for them because that's what we're conditioned to do, right? To be the provider, especially being men, we've got to provide. And it's natural. We want to provide. And so I went off to become a teacher and did that so that I could provide a stable income, not like the dream of being an artist. And one thing led to another, 3 children, and eventually the marriage dissolved and we went our separate ways. And even when the kids were coming to me then, um, share care, it was like I was really good at doing the free stuff with them. I live in Cairns, right, where there's beautiful, pristine rainforests and beautiful beaches and all sorts of stuff that we could do for free, you know, ride our bikes. And but at the same time, then I was a single income household paying off a mortgage, not extravagant. We're not talking about extravagance, just a mortgage, just basic. I live in a very, very, very quaint, simple house, a car to get around in, and that was it. Like then life, I was maxed out just on that single income. So a part of me was like, oh man, I need, you know, I want to provide the kids with more. The free stuff's amazing. I love it.
Mhm.
But what about the big holidays? Or what about the good stuff? What about the stuff that I really want to do with them? And so I knew I needed more. And of course, the program then was that, well, you just work harder. You just work harder. You just swap even more of your time for money. That's how you go. That's how you do it. So at one stage, my story is up until this point in time, my story was that I had 3 jobs at one stage, a full-time teacher in high schools. And then I was teaching art classes at the local regional gallery to kids and to adults. And at one stage, I was also teaching at TAFE, teaching ceramics and pottery wheel usage to adults at TAFE. And it was working, like I had more money, but I had no time to do anything with, and I had no energy left. And then even when the kids were with me, right, they had to sit there while dad was earning the money. I couldn't leave them at home. They were too young at that age. So it just wasn't feasible. And so that was when I started to look around for options. There was a travel thing that I was involved with at one stage, and I thought that was going to be great. But in the end, their tactics were like, I didn't know any better, but it was like, oh, now that I've seen that there's way, way, way better things, the ways to do things, live. I look at it now and go, ooh, it's a bit smelly. But the vision was, you know, that the extended family and we could all just travel and we could have these really cool holidays at really reduced prices, and that could be a really cool thing. Another way to get what I wanted, and yet it wasn't working. So a friend of mine then just asked if I'd like to check out a webinar. And one thing led to another, and there was growth to be had for sure. You know, there was big growth in that. Ultimately, it was like, you want what? You want me to pay what for a what? But I don't think you understand here. Like, I'm skint, I'm pay to pay, and you want me to pay what for a what? Like,
how common is that? It's like, excuse me.
and yet at the same time, I did it. I found a way, right? I created a way, and even then, on my initial investment, you know, I've got that back 5 or 6 times. So it's the argument's null and void until you have it, and that's why actually one of my, on a side note, it's one of my big growth areas, I guess. I believe I could say, in that people, when they first enter the business, if they've got this poverty mindset, the big mindset shift is from debt being just like more bills and more contraction. Isn't it interesting that a contract is the opposite of freedom? A contract, when our body contracts, you know, we shut down. We're not free at all. We're not free in our body, in our head, in our mind, in our body, in our emotions, in our movements. Yeah, I could, you know, you're shaking it off. You're feeling
Like,
it.
get that off.
Ooh, exactly. And so the big mindset shift is from that debt equals bills equals more contraction equals less freedom equals more people wanting more of me, flipping that into a growth mindset, an investment mindset, a mindset where, well, actually, you know what, this is a purchase that will literally generate income for you. So it's an income producing opportunity, or you can see it as debt. One of those is going to contract and only will contract and will only ever contract.
Yeah.
And then the other is expansive. And so the growth just started to occur, right? From the very beginning. Even just making the decision was a big growth opportunity. And yet the full story for me is that when I joined, it was only a few weeks after I joined that I literally had what some might term an energetic awakening. When we talk about people waking up, it was like, it was physical. It was literally physical. There was, the back of my neck had this dull throbbing ache that I couldn't explain for a few days. I wanted to get out and about, and instead I actually cocooned in my house for 3 days. I barely went anywhere. And from then, you know, I reached out actually into our community. Back then, our community only had like 700 people in it. That's when it was. So it was that long ago. Now, just for context, those people playing at home, for that in that context, now we have about 8,000 people around the globe. But I just put a notice out, like back then we could sort of post into the Facebook group with a bit more freedom, and I didn't even know what I was asking for. Didn't even have a clue, but I think I'm after some sort of like energy clearing or healing or something. Like, I didn't have a clue what I was even talking about.
Yeah.
And I had a couple of calls with a couple of people, and it just, like, everything shifted, everything. And it might be difficult for some people to comprehend, and other people might be just going, yeah, yeah. And other people, yeah, I've been doing that since I was 6, you know, or I've been doing that my whole life, or I've been doing this, or, well, is that what's happening to me? You know, like all the stuff. But I could walk into a room and there might be just one person in that space, and that person's body would just go invisible. And I could see how energy was or wasn't moving through their body. Like they didn't even exist. It was only their energy field. It was only their internal flow or their internal blockages. And yeah, it all just shifted from then. And it sort of came and went for a little while. But then it just kept evolving and evolving and evolving. and parallel with this business. So that's really what my story is. That I'm not guaranteeing that this will lead to an energetic awakening for you, but I'm not saying it won't.
Yeah, I love hearing that because I've heard you, share your story in our community, and I've had a similar experience when I first, so very similar when I first joined our community. Things just started dropping in, and I felt like, what's going on? And yeah, just realized a lot of things about life and the world, and yeah, it was like I don't know, yeah, it's like a medicine experience, I suppose you'd say. It's just I don't quite have the words to articulate it, but I resonate with what you've said because it's yeah, everything has shifted for me. Just coincided with finding our community, starting this business. It has a funny way of taking you through a process, right?
In lots of ways, and I'm 100% certain, 111% certain that it was actually the onboarding process that actually brought it all on.
Mm.
In as far as, now we call it a discovery process, but in my very, very early mentoring as well, the assistance that I was receiving when I started the business that everybody receives, it was things like, well, what would my perfect day look like? Oh, I've never really thought about that. Oh, what am I here for? Well, how would I like to help other people? Well, what would I do with my time if money and time and resources weren't an option, were limitless? What would I do? What would I do? And the funny thing was, I had a moment a couple of years back where like 10 grand dropped into my bank account, and my story was, oh well, because some people join the business thinking, well, when this business is successful, then I can be happy.
Yeah.
And here I was thinking, well, when I've got the money, then I can do all this stuff. And then I can, go all these places and, do all this stuff with friends. And I remember this one day that this money dropped into my account, and I was like, oh, well, what now? I've got money. So what am I going to do? And it was a big, like, I don't even know what to do. I don't even know what to do because we're so often in these states of not enoughness that even having it then, like I share, that it's a common statistic in Australia that something like 85% of people that win large lotteries are actually worse off within 2 years
Yeah.
than they were before they won it because they can't hold it.
Yeah.
Like they can't hold it. There's all sorts of other stories that get activated, or they don't understand the vibration of it, or they don't understand the emotional impact it might have, or the energetic impact it might have, or like I share a story about, when I was a kid, I used to love those Robin Hood stories, the old Robin Hood movies and that sort of stuff. And well, what's the key lesson there? You rob from the rich and you give to the poor. So if that's the story that's romantically actually activated in my body, if I was to become rich, then at the same time, I'm going to get robbed. And villains are always rich people. And they deserve to have stuff stolen off them. Oh, I don't want my stuff stolen. Why would I want to be rich? Oh, you guys can have the money. You have it. You have it. I'll just stay poor and a good person because
Isn't
I'm a validated victim if I'm a good person and I'm poor,
mm.
especially as healers,
Isn't it
especially
interesting that's what we are programmed with? Like,
and infinite number of other possibilities. If
mm,
you're rich, then you must have scammed somebody. If you have X amount of money that transcends the pay for time scenario, where you are only worth an hourly rate. Like one of the stories that I shared, because of the energy gifts that came on, I went into healing and learned modalities and all this sort of stuff. And yet one of the stories was, well, how much do I charge people? What's the exchange?
mm,
And I had this big dilemma because, see, I actually went and did this modality, and it was actually a series of modalities, and we were doing all these workshopping of skills and stuff with people. And the first person that I worked with, um, he said, okay, cool. So what I want activated is more clients. Okay, cool. Well, what do you charge your clients? He said, oh, 30 grand. US. Oh, okay, cool. Yeah. And what do they get for that? I'm just curious. Oh, they get a weekly call, and that goes for 12 weeks. And you know, sometimes I go and fly and visit them for a day. So man, you give me 30 grand, I'd freaking fly and visit you too. And and it just went, oh. Because my story, what I realized was I couldn't charge anybody what I couldn't afford.
Mm.
And that was a big block for me in that, all right, well, is $88 for a session okay? Is that okay for you? And if there's, oh no, sorry, I'm sorry for charging too much. Oh, I'm sorry for charging too much. Yeah, it's a lot of money for me too. Yeah, I get it. And
Mm.
yet at the same time, you know, I know the power and the potency of the stuff that I do on this energetic level. And
Mm.
yeah, there's a huge story I have around that, where I literally gave a free healing to a multimillionaire, and a multimillionaire within our community.
Yeah.
And he went on, and just after that healing, like the full story is he was lying down on a ritzy golf course in the dark, because that's all the time I had. I was thinking, well, when am I going to get another opportunity to work with this guy? And he sort of sat up after it. Like, we're literally lying down on the surface paradise on one of the ritziest golf courses in the dark. He's just lying down receiving this healing. And then he's popped up and he's quizzing me and testing me out, you know, like, because, you know, how do you feel different? Oh, I'm going to test this guy. I don't know if I'm going to share what just happened. So he just asked me a few questions, and he's just like, whoa. Because here's this guy, right? He's a multimillionaire, travels the world. He can afford any healer he wants. Why would he want little old Craig? Well, because it's just how that happened. And he sat up and he was blown away, because the concerns that he had were literally blatantly obvious. It was like, almost like, are you sure you don't know what the problem is? Like, are you sure? Because this is not fucking rocket science here. It's like, it's just like lit up. And so anyway, we cleared it. And the full story was then that he went off and had a phone call with his partner, who's over in Canada at the time. And the first thing she said to him on the call was, what have you done? I can feel your heart is open or something. You've done something, haven't you? You've done something. You feel different. She was telling him this across the world. So I love telling that story in as far as it highlights all our stuff. Because another part of the story was that, you know, to go to this event, I went to Kmart and I bought like $70 worth of clothes, like a new pair of shoes that were $15, a new belt, like just a couple of things, and a bag to put them in. And I was in such poverty mindset at that point in time that it was like I was feeling like shit and feeling guilty for spending $70.
Mm.
And here I was working over the top of this guy. He had a Gucci belt. Well, they're like $400. He had a prototype shirt on that was named after him and was going to be a clothing label named after him. And that was the prototype shirt that the designer had given him. And then there was the pants, and I don't even know what the pants were, and I don't even know what the shoes were that he was wearing. But this is the sort of stuff, and I'm doing triggered AF while I'm working. Oh, man, like, your belt is worth like way more than my whole suitcase put together, and it's a belt, you know, the stuff. And yet the other part of it is that this community will both support and trigger, and support and trigger, and allow things to grow and provide opportunities. And it is the bridge, right? It is the bridge from somewhere to somewhere else. We
Mm.
think we're starting a business, and we are. And I have to remind myself quite frequently that, come on, remember, Craig, this is a business. Like, just remember it's a business. It's not just epic personal development that other people pay thousands of dollars for by itself. It's literally a business on top. You can literally earn income doing this. Oh, yeah, I forgot. Yeah, I was busy. I was busy in the other realms, and I was busy doing more trainings, and I was busy, receiving more gifts, and I was busy receiving more upgrades and stuff.
I can feel the same too. I just love how it all gets to roll together, and it can just feel like a big delicious dream, and then you have to ground and go, oh, this is actually a purpose here.
Because that's the point, right? Like, I can't, if I have poverty consciousness and I give away X number of healings, I can't go to my bank manager and say, is it okay if I don't pay my mortgage this week because I gave away 10 epic healings? You should have been there, man. Like, all this stuff was happening, and like spirits were coming into the place, and and the stuff that this guy had in him, but you should have. Is it okay if I don't pay my mortgage this week?
Mm.
Let alone our bosses if we're in a job. Whoa, boss, there's some big galactic stuff going on, or there's something happening to my body physically right now. Is it okay if I don't come to work? What? Huh? What? No, you better be here. Otherwise, we're going to dock your pay, or we're not going to pay you, or XYZ. Where when we're on this path, when this stuff starts to be the reality that we're creating, then it can happen where our old existence can't support us anymore in numerous ways, even things like partnerships, even things like family connections, even things like long-term friends, even things like occupations. How we occupy our time can shift. Even things like the food we eat, let alone the water we drink. I loved that recently in our community that was dropped, where the old saying is, you are what you eat, and yet we're not 70% food. We're 70% water, so really we are what we drink.
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah. Conversations, right? They just flow, and this is kind of how my life goes now. This is just.
I love it. I love it. I love it. Well, there was probably lots of questions I wanted to ask you, but you've kind of shared exactly perfect, of course. But I think a juicy one, if you've got anything to share, would be like when did you feel like it was worth your investment and it was worth your time to jump into our community and go down this path of building a business with what's required? Yeah.
To be honest, I didn't know, and it was shit scary. Like I said, I was pay to pay, and the only way I could start was to finance it, and that was a whole new thing as well. Like I said, I'm going into more contraction. I'm like, oh, it was shit scary. And yet there was something about it. There was something about it where even though the person that introduced me, and this was the hilarious part really, is that even though the person that introduced me wasn't really spiritual, the people that joining with him I was connected with was like I in those early days it was their second event. We have these freedom events, right, as you're aware of, Mel. And the first one was like 33 people or something in their Airbnb in the Gold Coast. And the second meetup, I wasn't there then, but the second one, it was 230. And at that point in time, it was like a third of the community, nearly a third of the community was at this event. And I joke about it. It was actually like an X-Men convention, just without the uniforms. It was like all these gifted people in all these unique, amazing ways, like modalities that we know, like chiropractic, naturopaths, like all these people who, and if you really know people that are really gifted in those areas, they're not their occupation, they're way more than that. There's a lot of energy work and energy healing in chiropractic, for example. that's what it was like. And I was just, at that point in time, I'd recently just sort of switched on all my gifts, and um, and it was just powerful. It was the most powerful experience I'd ever had. I couldn't sit down. For some of the speakers, I literally had to go and stand up and stand in the back of the room where no one could see what the fuck was going on. Like I was like an energy was pouring in, and like, yeah, it was phenomenal. And while to a certain degree that aspect of it has simmered down a little bit, there's certainly a lot of gifted people who are drawn to this community because it's the consciousness, because it's the products that we deal with that literally are magnetic.
Yeah.
And when we switch the mind off. So did I know? No. In fact, I didn't know. My logical mind had no evidence to prove it, other than this is a business and there's some people that are making sales and having sales made for them. So I don't understand that. How can you have a sale made for you? Like, I don't quite get it. Sales made for them, and the commissions were in the thousands of dollars. So, oh, okay, you kind of got my attention. You kind of got my attention on a head sort of space, but at the same time, there's something else going on that I don't really understand yet. And there wasn't even this inner dialogue, really. This inner dialogue didn't exist. It was more like, I was as 3D as you get. And yet we don't know what we don't know until we know it. And then boy do we know it.
Oh, yeah.
But yeah, in short, I didn't know. And yet there was something that was saying, just do it.
Yeah.
Just do it. Find a way.
Mm.
Find a way. And then my advice is to stay in that energy, because it's very, very, very easy to drop back into our mind and our programs and our wounds and our fears. There was a lady that I was mentoring early on, and I said, well, you like the product, don't you? And she said, oh, I don't know. I said, well, how can you not know? Do you like it or not? She, oh, well, I haven't actually taken it out of the box yet. And I said, oh. And so that's the point, right? So I asked her to explain, and she said, well, I figured, well, when my business fails, if my business fails, I'll get more for it if I sell it and it hasn't been opened. And that's the point. Are we living in contraction, or are we actually allowing ourselves to receive and expand? Are we ogres, and we have to go into the layers and into the layers and into the layers and into the layers and into the layers? Well, guess what? When you get to the center of an onion, there's more onion. Either that, or when you really get to the center of the onion, there's nothing. And if your practice and if your belief system is all set up around going to the center of the onion, eventually you're going to get disappointed because you're going to run out of onion. At some point in time, we get to understand that to go inwards continually is only going to limit us. If we keep looking inwards at the problem, wait, I've got to look in because there's problems. 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 Then the piece of the puzzle that we're missing is that we're actually here to expand. So when I peel away a layer, I'm peeling away a layer that's in the way of my expansion. And I love all that is, however I can, wherever I can, whenever I can. Oh, I got a sore heart, have you, Craig? Oh, look at that wounded heart there. Oh, I love you. I wonder what we can do and grow with who we are and loving all of who we are. Like, you've got a bit of a thing about speaking your voice, have you, on social media? Oh, love you. And seeing it as the thing that we're here to transcend, as one of the things that we're here to transcend. And the growth is the expansion. The growth is the saying the yes. And at the same time, saying the no to all the stuff that we know we're not actually here incarnated into this existence to continue to suffer. Some
Yes.
people just haven't suffered enough yet, sadly.
It's true. That's very true. Like, what do they say? It's like, yeah, if you're not in enough pain, you're not going to shift out of it because you're just a bit comfortable or used to that.
Exactly. And it's amazing, you know, in the work that I've done with people, it's amazing how much people tolerate. How much people tolerate. Yeah, what was your childhood like? Oh, you know, just average childhood. Just an average childhood. Okay, cool, yeah. And then this one client I remember, just an average childhood. One of 6 or 7 children. She was the youngest. The teenagers resented having to look after her, so that was more than enough. More than enough being resented and told to shut up and stop crying and blah, 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 just be seen and not heard and not cause any problems. So she literally learnt to shut down all of her emotions and be like a stone. And I could see it. And I was just, oh, yeah, that's, you know, more than enough to work with. People could go to normal traditional therapists for decades with that stuff and not get anywhere.
Mm.
And yet then she piped up 3/4 of the way through the call. And in full love, I share this, that do you think the fact that our elder 2 brothers sexually experimented with my sister and I when we were little girls, do you think that might have something to do with the problems? Oh, and how long did this go on for? Oh, a few years. And if anybody's moving through those sorts of learnings and experiences, please reach out to somebody. Please get support to leave those situations.
Mm.
Please find the support. But the reason why I mention that story is, how did she describe her childhood? Oh, just an average childhood. It's amazing what we normalize, that we
Mm.
normalize. And there, so many times I wish I could have had this kind of an evolution when my kids were really little, so that I hadn't passed a lot of my stuff on to them that I had inherited, you know, that I was just passed on, so that we could talk about money consciously, so that we could have all these literal free sharing, emotional sharing experiences where we all grow from each other and with each other and support each other, instead of how I did things.
Yeah.
And it's all been brought about by this business. In so many ways, we think we're joining a business, but we're actually not. From my perspective, when people join my business, what I talk about is, which is, you know, the same as them joining yours, is that we don't know exactly what's going to be activated. But what it does do in that search for authenticity, in that openness to discovering who we are authentically, everything that's not that will show up. And we get to play with it and work through it and explore it. Or we can close down and just stay blocked and stay stuck and stay little and stay small. And we will resent it on an emotional, energetic, soul level, unless something else comes along that we replace it with eventually. Mm.
Mm. Absolutely. Yeah. I love how you speak about I feel very much the same as you. So I'm like, yeah, tell me more. I'm so there with you on that.
Yeah.
It's
Yep.
so true. We don't know what will be activated, what we're activating until we're there.
There's a metaphor that I've been using a lot lately you might like. And it is, if somebody was vision impaired, blind from birth, how do you explain to them what the color blue is in a way that they can comprehend?
Mm.
And the reason why I love the metaphor is because the color blue, while we're using semiotics like signs, it's still visual based. It's experiential. Like if somebody didn't have any taste buds, how do you explain to them what the flavor sweet is?
Mm.
Or if you'd only ever had plain porridge with no sweeteners your entire life, how do you explain to somebody what chocolate is? The texture, the flavor, the richness. How do you do this stuff? And so the reason why I love these metaphors is because abundance is the same, authenticity is the same.
Mm.
Speaking your own authentic heart song. Let alone to be able to actually sing it. What does divine love feel like? If we've only ever known dysregulation because of our childhood, because of experiences, because of the family unit, because of traumas, because of X, Y, or Z, if we've only ever known dysregulation, then how do we know what wholesome, loving, divine really is? Loyal, stable, reliable, dependable. How do we know what this stuff is? And I feel that this business starts to activate that. We start to feel what wholesome is, what authentic is. We start to know and understand who we are. We start to see that bullshit walks. And it was a part of my learning, when I started to work with people on an intuitive level, one of my learnings really early on was like, Craig, you don't have to have your shit all together, but you get to own your shit.
Mm. I like it.
I don't need to be perfect. We live in an era, like the shamanic stuff that I do, and I hear people at times say, oh, well, who did you train under? And you need to have trained under the right people for the right amount of decades, and you need to have learnt the right things. We live in an era where that stuff can be switched on and you don't even need to know where it came from. In fact, you're better off not even asking sometimes, because that's just going to complicate shit. So when we're fully open to how life literally gets to activate and be way, way, way more than we didn't even know existed, we get to start to discover what the color blue is. We get to start to discover what it's like to receive on an abundant level instead of a trickle feed. Oh, wait, I need $2,000. Cool. Well, that means I need to go ahead and work 100 hours. Oh, the level of where I'm at in my business is if a certain sale is made for me by the community, I can receive $5,000 and even $6,000 in a commission. Awesome. Then I can go ahead and I can give away stuff. I can still do my healings cheap for people if I want to, if it's beautiful, if that's a part of my mission to actually enable and help people who can't afford it, instead of raising my prices so that only wealthy people can afford me and I feel like I'm letting humanity down, or whatever the programs are. Oh no, I'm not going to save everyone. Oh, no, I can't raise my prices. I can't leave anyone behind. Or whatever the stories are. This is what's powerful for this business, as far as I'm concerned, is that it activates all of these possibilities. And of course, I understand that a lot of people, even people who knew me before all of this, if they were to hear me speaking like this now, they'd be like, Craig, are you on drugs? Actually, the opposite. I'm not on drugs. Yeah, you could try getting off them too. Try smoking. Try not drinking and trying to ease your problems by putting yourself into a depressant. Try not poisoning yourself so much so that you've got a thing called a hangover that we just societally accept as a consequence of having a good time.
Mm. Mm.
Try not needing pharmaceuticals. Try not needing pharmaceuticals for the pharmaceuticals that you're having. Try not having pharmaceuticals for the side effects of the pharmaceuticals that you're taking for the pharmaceuticals you're taking. Try not having pharmaceuticals for the fact that they actually hacked stuff out of your body because they thought that you were a meat robot. instead of a soul, instead of an illusion, instead of an amazingly adapted, energetic, electromagnetic being that's just trying to communicate alignment and misalignment with you, ease and dis-ease. Try actually having products that literally help to activate and support that nurturing of that aspect of you until you literally become an organic, liquefied, crystalline being. Wonder what might happen if you did that instead. Scary, right?
I wonder.
Magical, right? Oh, yeah.
I wonder what you would say to anyone watching right now and resonating, but who is a little unsure as to what is it you guys do? And is this for me? Can this be something I can do?
What would I say to them? Well, here's the thing. You sit down and watch Netflix and you get a little preview of what the series is going to be about, but you still don't know what the actors are going to say and do exactly. But we watch that. You go to a restaurant and you might try something you've never had before. You've never had it before. It might be the worst dish in the world. Do you have that? We might spend money to buy a bottle of wine a night or a carton of beer a week. How much is that going to cost you over 20 years to continue to do that? All right, $50 a week, 52 weeks in the year, $2.5 grand in a year. So over 10 years, I've spent 25 grand. Over 20 years, I've spent 50 grand, not accounting for. So your habit of drinking a carton of beer a week could cost you $50,000. If I said to you, give me 50 grand and I'll give you a carton of beer a week for the next 20 years, you would go, what? What a ripoff. Why would I pay that much? Well, I don't want, why would I? And yet, here's the hilarious thing. The products that we align with, we know last for 20 and 25 years. And across that lifespan, well, we know that because they've been lasting for that long. It's a 50-year-old company. And we know that, well, inflation's hit us too, but the cost of actually owning that product is $7 a week over its lifetime. A cup of coffee. And I see some people go to cafes and have 2 or 3 a day. Wouldn't it be interesting if there was a product out there where you didn't even feel like drinking coffee anymore? So it's all relative, right? And how are you going to know what the color blue is unless you open your eyes and you actually take a look? You actually trust. And even if you don't trust, wouldn't it be fascinating if you just suspended it for a little while and used words like, oh, I wonder. Oh, I'm curious. I think I know what this is, and I think I know what it's all about, says my logical, programmed, limited database that doesn't even have a freaking clue. Or, it's okay, mind. We're going to let the heart, and not the wounded heart, and not the people-pleasing heart, the heart of hearts. In fact, I'm going to follow my DNA tingle. I'm going to follow my goose pimples. I'm going to follow these, and I'm going to let these actually have a bit of a say for a while and just see what I discover. And I wonder what also might happen then when I actually keep suspending this that's been programmed to keep me exactly where I am. If I keep suspending this and I keep coming back to this to make all the decisions, if I follow my joy, if I follow my wonder, if I follow my bliss, if I follow my fascination, if I follow my awe, if I follow my beautiful, passionate, positive impact, if I follow that, I wonder where and what path might light up in front of me that I didn't even know existed. I wonder what happens if I part the curtains and go backstage for a while and start to construct my own play. instead of sitting in the audience and just watching everyone else have a hoot up on stage. Wouldn't it be fascinating if I learnt my own routine and I love performing it? And it's not even a performance, it's just being. Oh, you do that so naturally. Oh, really? I haven't even practiced. I'm just playing here. I'm just being and I'm just sharing and I'm just doing. And how awesome is it that you guys think that this is awesome?
And that's what you get to do.
Exactly. We get to be jelly wrestlers. We get to be if we want to be. If we're even curious about it. See, and this is the point, right? In where I am at now, I've come to I still have my human stuff. Man, I had human stuff all afternoon. But at the same time, I actually understand why I'm here. I understand why I am here. The only way out of duality is to love everything. The only way out of the duality of this human versus spiritual thing is to love the game and the dance of it all. I know now. I know, and I know. I know. I am you in a different flavor, but I am everything, and I am no thing, no single thing. I'm nothing, and I'm everything. I know that I'm a limitless soul here to milk the fuck out of being human. And when I do things that I'm eager to do and enthused in the doing of and excited to do, I become spirited. I'm full of spirit. I am spirit. I am spiritual in the doing of the fun stuff, in the doing of the stuff that expands me, in the living of the experience, in the learning of the stuff, in the positive impact of other beautiful beings who are doing the same thing. I become a limitless spirited soul here to explore all it is to be human, and being broke does not help do that. There is so much nectar out there that we do not get to experience until we actually open up to the possibility and the allowance of abundance too. Do I need money to live? No. Do I need money to be happy? No. But having money, having access to money from a clear space, from a clear mind, expands so many possibilities that I can't do if I'm broke.
Mm.
Sorry, I'd love to do this world-class healing on you right now, but I have to go to work. So, oh, you're having a bad moment and you really need support because you're thinking of, yeah, sorry, I'd love to help you, but yeah, I've got to be in class. Oh, what's that? You need time out. You need a sick day, but you don't have any racked up. So you have to go to work instead because, well, you need to pay bills and you've got rents and nobody's giving you away a free house. And you have to fuel your petrol tank and this is what's led me, like my branding now is literally just me. I know that I'm a spirited soul. I am here to milk the fuck out of being human. And I know that when we have fun, we get to fund that life, that wealth of life. I'm here to fund and fuel a wealth of life as my spirited soul self here to explore all that being human has to offer. And I've gotten here in this place, in this mindset, in this beingness, thanks to this business. Regardless of what I do or how I move, regardless of what I'm meandering through. And sure, you might not jump to rung number 100 on the ladder, let alone number 10, but we all get to take a first step. We all get to see what the view's like from the next set of steps.
I love that.
So we get to have a look. We get to be open to discovering new possibilities.
Mm. Yeah, money is resources, right? If we're not, yeah, we're not the most resourced we want to be and making the big impact and all the things we want to do when we're broke. We're just not. Mm.
Or when we're focused on the earning of the income, the generating of it, and that becomes the priority. I've seen a lot of operators who that's how they operate. They're not interested really in their offerings. They're actually more interested in the money their offerings bring. That's an approach. But wouldn't it be interesting if that was literally dissolved, that need, the neediness, the focus on that rather than people's spiritual, emotional, or physical, or beingness?
Wouldn't it be interesting?
Fascinating. I wonder. One that I really love, you'll like this one, I say it quite a lot, is wouldn't it be hilarious if, imagine if, like, oh, it's right up there with I wonder, but what it does is it activates humor.
Mm.
And then we just get to detach from it. Like, wouldn't it be hilarious if you joined an online business and, like, in the space of 6 months, you made 100 grand? Man, that'd be hilarious, wouldn't it?
You know what I love about that is something my 4-year-old would say. He would say, wouldn't that be a crack up?
Exactly. You know, and I've played games with my kids when they were younger where, when I first entered this business, you might even like it. People watching this might even like it. Imagine I gave you 10 grand a week for the rest of your life. How would you budget your money? And so what we did was we sat down together and we started to come up with a budget. What would we do with 10 grand a week? And I was things like, well, $500 for food. And they were like, what? Like these days, we're probably getting close to that nearly. But $500 a week for food. I said, yeah, we can go to a nice restaurant once a week. We can go to a cheaper restaurant once a week. We can just walk in and we don't have to look for what's on special. We don't have to look for what's reduced for quick sale. We can literally just, and we don't have to buy the cheap products. We can actually buy the really good, healthy products that support our journey as well. We can buy things that literally are organic. We can buy things that have the best ingredients that are good for the planet as well and aren't exploiting humans somewhere else in the world. We can do all this stuff because we've got the money instead of just the cheap stuff. And did you know that cheap bread is actually manufactured overseas, partially baked and shipped to Australia, and then they finish baking it here?
I think my
And
face.
that makes economic sense to people. To buy the cheapest bread we can, it's literally made overseas from overseas ingredients, and then we actually go to the trouble of transporting it across the world so that we can save $1 or two. How is that useful for the planet or us?
Mm.
We get to actually play with this and reset all of this stuff. So yeah, and it was things like, okay, well, we're going to put aside this much money per week for an international holiday or two a year, and we're going to put aside this much a week for a national holiday or two a year, and we're going to have this much for entertaining per week. So these things that we normally reserve just for birthdays or special occasions, well, we just get to do it if we feel like it.
Mm.
Oh yeah, well, what are you going to do for birthdays then? Bigger stuff.
Isn't it interesting what unlocks when you come out of that survival just enough to, well, what's possible then? And so often, before even finding this business, I hadn't even asked myself that question.
Because we don't have the space to, because we're in survival mode. We're contracted. Oh, if I gave you a day off tomorrow, what would you do? I don't know, it'd just be nice not to have to work. Cool.
Mm.
You don't want to bungee jump out of a helicopter over the Great Barrier Reef? Well, that's what I'm doing. I'm leaving at 2 a.m. Like, whatever. What's
Uh,
possible? What's possible? And will you make this much money joining this business? Maybe not. You could earn a shitload more. And my results or your results are neither an indicator of what you will earn nor evidence of your cap.
Mm-hmm.
You can use me as evidence if you want to, because you're not sure what you're evidence of, or you don't have the belief in yourself yet because you don't know what the color blue is yet. Wouldn't it be fascinating if you joined Mel, you joined me, you joined whoever's watching this, however they're seeing this transmission? And wouldn't it be fascinating if you literally got to the point where you were earning 100 grand a month? Or if I said to you, in 5 years' time, if you put in the effort and the work and the interest and you literally grew yourself and you just kept showing up, if I was to hand you $1 million in 5 years' time, would you persevere and keep doing it? Would you find a way? I wonder.
Mm-hmm.
I wonder how dreams get to literally be real. And we're detached, and we have a shitload of fun along the way, and we explore all sorts of aspects of self, and we heal ourselves so that then when we get to 5 years' time, or 2 years' time, or 10 years' time, and the $1 million gets handed to us, we are adjusted. We are free up here, and we're free here, and we're free here, and we know how we move on the planet. We know what we're here for. We know what our mission is, and we can just say, "Thank you, I'm ready."
Yeah, we're free to receive it.
Perfect timing. Perfect timing. Because now I'm in alignment with it. Now my life is synchronous. Now my life is amazing. Hmm.
My one is, yeah, imagine in 10 years' time, you knew your children, they're taken care of financially for the rest of their lives. What then? What then? What would open up for you?
What do you do with your days?
Mm. Mm.
What do you get to do? Where do you get to go? What do you get to see? How do you get to move? How do you get to dress? What clothes do you wear? What food do you actually fill yourself with? Who prepares it? How do they prepare it? Where do they prepare it? How
Are you
much time,
barefoot?
how much time do you get?
Mm.
You can scoff it in a hurry if you want because you're on your way to your next jet boat experience. You can eat certain foods because you're going into a beautiful sacred ceremony somewhere at the foot of some beautiful sacred mountain in Peru. I wonder.
Mm-hmm.
Hmm. I warned you. I'm pretty sure I warned you. I think were you saying like, oh yeah, 15, 20-minute chat?
However, look, I'm so
Yes, I
grateful
love it.
for your
I love
time.
it.
Thank you,
It just
Craig. I could,
flows.
yeah, you could. How do you put a cap on this is what's happening? Because you don't have to.
Exactly. And this is the point, right? That we get to start to understand and explore what melts space and time for us.
Mm.
You know, it used to happen when I was on the pottery wheel. I'd sit down and then I'd look at the clock. Oh shit, it's been 2 hours. Oh, felt like 20 minutes. Oh, no wonder I'm a bit stiff. Oh, you know, but it's not until we actually come out of it. These conversations are like this for me, whereas like they just start and they just flow and we just share and we just be. And how long is a piece of string? Well, how long would you love it to be?
Yeah.
Mm.
How long would you love it to be? I love that.
Mm. All a blessing. It's the same with you. What do you want for dinner? Something hilarious. What do you want for dinner? Oh, something juicy. What do you want for dinner? Oh, something that tingles my DNA. What do you want for dinner? Oh, something that just melts me. What do you want for dinner? Something that reminds me of home.
Mm.
How do you want to earn an income? Oh, a juicy way. How do you want to earn an income? Oh, something that lights me up, a way that lights me up. How do you want to earn an income? How do you want to generate a livelihood? Oh, I don't know, something that, like, really lights me up like a firework. Something
How
that
do you want
melts,
to feel?
something that melts me. Something that makes me feel all the feels. Something that's a whole vibe. Something that makes me feel like, yeah, man, this is why I'm here.
Mm.
Something that reminds me what it is to be alive. Whether that's sleeping in on a weekday because I can, whether that's the feel of beautiful, beautiful sheets around my body, whether that's the feel of the sun on my face, whether that's the feel of the soft breeze, whether that's beautiful experience of the salt water on my skin, even though it's 11 a.m. and everyone else is at work.
Which is actually a favorite of mine, is going places when no one's there or just whenever, because you don't have to look at the time or think about what day it is or ask anyone. It's, yeah,
Wouldn't
be
it be fascinating if we actually started to form whole communities where that's the thing? And there's not this whole, yeah, well, you're a bludger, you're not going to work. Someone has to make society go around. This is the point, right? When you're abundant, you're putting money into the community. You're literally funding other people so they have an occupation, so they have a job. You're building a dream home, cool. All the people that you're paying doing that. You're buying products because you're abundant, you can do that, amazing. You want to gift everybody their own medicine drum at the next circle, awesome. Because you're so abundant, cool. How much is 10 medicine drums going to cost? I know. We get to do these things if we want to, if we are that abundant.
doesn't that light you up?
Yes. I don't need to do it, but it would be amazing.
Mm.
Mm,
Yeah, that's a piece like you shared for me. If I want to give away energy healings, I can. What I want to charge, I can, because of desire, not because of need or of a story or of urgency to make money. But
Or it feels good to do it.
yes, yes, yes.
You know what? It feels good to charge you $2,000 for this process. You know what? It feels good to just whatever you can afford, whatever feels good for you to offer. $20, beautiful.
Mm.
Wouldn't that be interesting? Mm,
And wouldn't it feel good to just let your pleasure lead?
exactly.
That's
Yeah,
just, mm.
exactly. Whether that's time with kids, whether that's time with a partner, whether that's doesn't matter what it is, where it is, that we're just free how we use that time, where it goes. We have the freedom and the time and the space. Hey, we're only going to do a 2 kilometer hike this morning, but this track's 10 kilometers long. Hey, you want to take it? Sure. I wonder where it goes.
Mm. Yeah.
Hey, there's this epic course that I've just seen and it starts this weekend and it goes for 5 days. Do you want to do it? Yeah. Oh, but it costs this much money. Well, yeah, awesome. Get it out of that account.
Yeah. Mm.
Yeah, you got the bank details? Where do I transfer it? Just do it now. Wouldn't it be hilarious if we got it out in $5 notes and handed it to them in cash?
Ah,
While we can.
wouldn't it be hilarious? I love it.
Hilarious.
Oh,
Such an honor.
thank you so much for your time, Craig. Thank you. Thank you.
Most welcome.
So
Most
appreciate your time, your energy, bringing that to this space.
whoop, whoop.
And anything that's landing for you, reach out to myself, reach out to Craig. We can explore whatever those, what did you call them? DNA tingles. I love that. We can
Ooh.
explore what those DNA tingles mean for you.
Or the bone marrow melting.
That's nice. That is deep. Mm.
And you know what's special about bone marrow? It's the place where new cells are born.
Mm.
So wouldn't it be interesting if this conversation literally was activating bone marrow?
Thank you so much, Craig.
Most welcome. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in.
Yes, yes, yes. All right. Massive blessings to everyone watching. And we'll
Sending
catch you
love.
very soon.
Yeah, boy.